The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Schoology. Schoology's passion lies in helping instructors and students have the best education experience possible. Schoology is a collaborative, student-focused, and faculty-centered learning management system. Students love Schoology because it gives them 24/7 access to course materials, real-time feedback from their instructors, and easy-to-use collaborative tools. Teachers love the streamlined workflow, integrated apps such as Google and Microsoft tools, and the ability to view evidence of student learning for making instructional decisions. To learn more about what is possible with Schoology, simply visit Schoology.com.
We do have non-food topics.
Oh, okay. I thought we were doing like Top Chef or something here.
Welcome to OnEducation. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss teacher-centric approaches to professional development, why teachers keep on striking, how to attract new teachers, and our guest this week is the amazing Carl Hooker from Eanes Independent School District in Austin, Texas.
Eanes like beans.
Yes, that's what he told us.
Eanes like beans.
Great guest.
Speaking of beans.
Yes.
I was putting together my kids' lunch today, and I'll tell you what they asked for, especially Isaac. Isaac loves this, and I'm not sure if this is unique or not. Hopefully it's not, because it seems like a pretty normal thing. But Isaac loves, so we buy flour tortillas.
Okay. That's pretty normal. Okay.
Yeah, and then put peanut butter on them.
Okay.
And then wrap them up like a roll.
Oh, okay.
So it's peanut butter in a flour tortilla. Isaac loves that. Instead of a sandwich, like instead of like a peanut butter and jam sandwich, he'll eat like a peanut butter and jam wrap.
Yeah. And do you guys say in Canada jam instead of jelly?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, but I do actually make peanut butter and jelly burritos, but that's just me and my household, and everybody probably looks at me strange here, including my wife, like looking at me like, "What are you doing?"
So wrapping up peanut butter and jam in a tortilla is kind of normal.
Sure.
No.
I would say it's not that weird. But yeah, no, I think especially for kids, I could see that totally. But I like it too. So
what's something you guys eat that other people might find strange?
My wife eats a lot of things that I don't eat that are really healthy. But I will eat them sometimes just to try them out, you know? So a lot of the vegetarian based things, vegan type of things, that she makes sometimes exclusively for herself, though we sometimes eat them too. Oh, have you ever had veggie corn dogs?
No.
They are delicious, Mike. I think I can't remember it's just a regular company that makes them, and then they're found in your freezer aisle. And they are so well worth it because you will never know that they're veggie. They taste delicious. You warm them up in the microwave or you heat them in the, bake them in the oven or whatever it might be. Yeah. And our kids absolutely love them. So veggie corn dogs, I think, would be the one where you're like, well, you'll be blown away by the taste. And then it's semi-healthy. I mean, it still has a lot of fats, but yeah, it's better than eating, processed meat.
Sure. And speaking of processed meat, have you ever had like one of the new kind of hamburgers, like the Impossible Burger or anything like that? Any of these new veggie burgers?
I have not.
So there's a chain in Canada called A&W. I don't know if there's A&Ws in the United States, but they're
like the root beer.
Yeah. So there are lots of those in Canada. It's a pretty popular chain in Canada. I don't know how many there are in the States, but they
popular. Yeah.
They carry the Impossible Burger now at A&W.
And it's a veggie burger?
And it's a veggie burger. And
I'll have to take Nicole out to it. Yeah.
You would not know. You wouldn't know that it's not at all.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you didn't tell her, if you just said A&W has this new burger and it's called the Impossible Burger because it's so amazing they can't believe it's possible how good it is.
Okay.
And you didn't tell her it was a veggie burger, I virtually guarantee you she wouldn't know. I think we should get people to weigh in on the Impossible Burger.
I'm interested now.
But I'll tell you, I've had it and it's friggin' great. Like, I could eat the Impossible Burger instead of a hamburger, like pretty consistently. I'd be happy with it. It's really good.
It's that good. Okay,
yeah, man.
I'm gonna definitely try. I'm gonna try to do that this week, and then say, hey, we gotta go out to eat at A&W. She likes A&W anyway, so this is good.
We like A&W here as well. So we do have non-food topics to talk about.
I thought we were doing like Top Chef or something here.
Top Chef, and our farming is going well. Just in case anyone is wondering,
yes.
we want to
join us. Tell us. Yes,
we are still absolutely addicted to a farming game.
Oh God, it's so addictive. Yep,
it has officially cracked my top 10 all-time most played games on Steam.
And you play a lot of games. I mean, on Steam, you have all the games on Steam. So
I have all of the games on Steam,
as we've said before in the thing. But for it to crack your top 10, that's a lot. I mean,
yeah, I'm over 100 hours now. Okay,
I'm probably getting close to that.
So pretty intense farming.
It's just crazy
going
farming.
On. I swear to God, I'm staring at my laptop running my farm because Steve Isaacs wants to go and cut my beets down. So I opened up the farm for him. So it's right beside me. It's running constantly. I can't stop farming, people. I'm like dreaming about corn.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Well, those are weird dreams, man. Corn dreams.
It is quite strange. We have an interesting pod because I think some of this stuff is pretty related, like what we're going to talk about later on in after the break.
Yes.
But this first thing we want to talk about, this teacher-centric approach to PD.
I love it.
The idea that there are districts that are foregoing kind of a mandated top-down approach to teacher professional development, stuff like what Damon Torgerson talks about.
Yes.
Initiative overload, I guess, is the word that we use for stuff like that, where it's like the boss is saying, you got to learn this, you got to learn this, you got to learn this. And instead, this idea that you can have a menu, for lack of better words,
yes,
of little things, little ways that you can improve your practice, give you an idea, teach you something new, and get compensated for that.
Yes.
And it's bite-sizable. It's easy to consume. What did you think of this? I think this is pretty great.
I love it. And let me just read the description here because people are going to be really, I think, interested in learning more about this. But basically, 3 times a year, there's a 2-week submission window open that allows teachers to submit for these micro-credentialing for completion. And you can think of that as a badge or whatever it might be. It's just basically a mini professional development unit. And you can choose one that the district offers. You can select ones with the districts. They have some partners outside of the district that have created some modules, if you want to call them that way. Or you can create your own. Love that, and then basically once they're approved, you can apply for, if you make less than 75,000, you can apply for $2,000 worth of micro credentials per year. So by getting professional development, you actually get paid. You know what I mean? You're actually getting paid to continue to earn money, or to grow in the profession. You're getting paid. If you make more than 75,000, it's less. You earned less. But depending upon what school district you're at, I'm sure you can work something out with whoever your local negotiating team is. But they've had 142 micro credentialing approval requests already. And then they've awarded more than 1,500 of them since the event actually began. So in the last window, this last submission window, they had 142 go through, but 1,500 already overall that they've already approved. Super awesome way to do professional development. Talk about teacher voice, you know what I mean, and choice, where you can say, hey, this is what I need right now. And I want to go ahead and learn more about this, and then submit it, and then be able to get paid for it too. Fantastic.
So we saw this idea on an article in Edutopia by what's her name,
Alyssa Voigt. Mm-hmm.
Alyssa Voigt at Kettle Moraine School District. We're going to link this article in the show notes and probably give them a shout out, I think, on Twitter, because
absolutely,
we're a giant fan of this, and I think I'd actually love to learn a little bit more about this. So maybe we'll get someone from there on to talk about this, because I think that this is an amazing model.
This is the next way. Yes, exactly.
Because not only do teachers not want to be forced to do almost anything that they don't, feel would be valuable, but to also just force PD down people's throats that doesn't apply to them, or I mean, none of it works. You have to have buy-in. We talk about it so often.
Yes.
That, I mean, I don't know how many more times we have to say, but you have to have buy-in, and teachers need to believe that this is the first question should be, how is this going to help me be a better teacher? And if you can't answer that, then, I mean, what the hell are you even doing? Exactly. So, and I mean, I think that when teachers get to choose from a list of options or create their own option, and as long as it's approved, because once it's approved, that means that it's been through a process where people have said, okay, yeah, we see the value in this, and maybe other people would like to do it too, but you can do this, and this looks great. So, I mean, this is the way to go. 100%, this is the way to go. Yeah, so, we got to have them on to talk more about it and how it works, and then so we can all learn from that, and then be able to have models like that in our own school districts. Sure, pretty exciting stuff. So, a pretty common problem, and this came up on Twitter as well, and I think that's maybe where this sprang from, but a pretty common problem, especially in the United States, but it's still a problem in Canada, is what you do after you're done school and you've just shelled out, in upwards of $40,000 for your education. Mm-hmm. Some people even more. Glen can get into that because I know he's quite a bit more than even I spent. But I mean, your student loans come due and you don't even have a damn job yet, or you're working at like wherever. You're working part-time at A&W selling Impossible Burgers instead of teaching. So a couple of universities have come up with some innovative ways to pay back your school. Yes. Including this idea of income sharing, or the idea that once you, correct me if I'm wrong, this is basically once you get a job, once you start doing what it is you went to school to do and you start earning an income, then you start paying back a portion of your tuition as like a monthly payment or something like that. Exactly right. Yeah. So they take a % of your monthly income, which, I mean, I'm looking at some of the universities here. For example, the University of Utah loans between $6,000 and $20,000 per year, depending upon how much you actually need. And then when you get your job, you pay back 2.85% of your monthly income back to the student loan, back to the loan. And the duration of the payments are 3 to 10.5 years, depending upon what it is, of course, how much you actually borrowed. But the coolest part, this is the part that I really like, Mike, is if you don't actually get a job, you get that job, you don't pay back anything. So it's kind of a double incentive. It's like, we're going to prepare you for a job that is going to exist. And when you get that job, you'll pay us back, which 2.85% isn't a giant ask, you know what I mean? As far as a % of your monthly income. Right. And it's a cool way of doing it. So you don't pay anything up front. I mean, that's pretty dang cool. I mean, as far as a way to be able to go ahead and get these, a way to be able to manage these loans. And I think the reason why, if you read this article, the universities are seeing that some students are just not going to school or delaying going to college, going and earning some money. And then when they come to school, they want to pay their tuition right off the bat, kind of with the money that they actually have instead of incurring debt. So there's a lot of knowledge out there from our generation of students that are coming in as college students. They're like, I don't want to take on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And instead, we're just going to hold off on going to school or only go part-time. You know what I mean? And so it takes them longer to get through school, or if they even end up attending, just because they're so scared of taking on that amount of debt, which who could blame them, Right. And so the minimum salary you have to make before you start paying back is generally between 20 and 25 grand, which, I mean, I would suggest that if you're applying for a job out of university in a field that requires a university degree, you're probably making, even at entry level, you're going to be making more than 20 or 25 grand a year. So
you need to be, yes.
Well, and I mean, you probably will be for sure. One thing I really like about this is that it also forces the university to put its money where its mouth is in terms of the quality of the education, and that being enough to get you a job, because so many universities tout numbers about how many graduates get jobs.
Yes.
After graduating from so-and-so. You graduate from so-and-so and we have a 95% employment rate kind of thing, right?
Yes.
You see that all the time.
Yeah.
Even with universities that don't need to advertise their kind of employment rates because they just get numbers regardless, they still talk about, that we're sending so-and-so, like the University of Waterloo up here in Ontario. It's one of the best universities in the world for like computer science and engineering. It was kind of founded by, not founded, but BlackBerry ended up being up here because of the University of Waterloo, and Google's main Canada office is in Waterloo. And so it's known. It's a known school. They still talk about how many people they feed to science and engineering and physics and all of these roles because it's a thing that they
Super
talk
important.
about.
Exactly.
And so now it's forcing these schools to say, we're not going to get paid unless it sounds like a lawyer. We won't get paid until you get paid.
Exactly.
But the reality is that that's the way it's going to happen. And I think that's great. That forces universities to actually, be invested in the outcomes of the students instead of just taking your tuition and walking away.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, it gives them a vested interest too in getting you a job. So there are some universities, I know that the University of Minnesota connects students with positions, like at least gives you the opportunity to apply and to have a good chance of getting a specific kind of job. Their education department, I'm not sure if that's actually the case, but I know in other departments like the business department, those kinds of things, where you're going to be connected to a business, maybe you'll even do an internship there. And eventually they know you're going to get hired at this place. So that placement rate is so important and so vital to any student investing their money to say, hey, I will get this certain kind of job, instead of just being like, oh, I just graduated with $100,000 of debt and now I don't even have a job.
Exactly. So people are still walking out of schools. Like there's still all of these strikes going on. This week, I guess, was West Virginia.
Yes.
And Oakland,
California.
I tell you, this has been a hell of a year for this. Pretty awesome stuff. And I mean, it's not really a whole lot different necessarily than the rest of them, but I mean, I think we're seeing a wave, right? We're seeing, momentum, and I think, the narrative, it's so much better than the narrative I've ever seen for strikes. Like I've never seen narrative on the side of teachers like I've seen in the United States in the last, 6 months with all of these walkouts. Overwhelmingly, maybe not overwhelmingly, but a large part of the support is on the teacher's side for these walkouts. They're paid like garbage and they're treated like crap. And their schools are falling apart. And I mean, everyone's had enough, including parents and kids.
Yes. And it's really awesome to see parent support for the teachers instead of them, so often in other years, it's been where it's been anti-teacher. You get anti-teacher kind of rhetoric out there. Yeah. And it's been a lot of support for the strikes themselves, and then really pretty quick resolutions for them. I mean, if you think about the LA teacher strikes, how quickly it was resolved for such a ginormous school district. And then all of the other ones that have happened previously, they're getting in Denver public schools, for example, 3 days, and then they already have a resolution. They're working. So the strikes are working. The things that they're striking for, of course, we're talking about salary, and we'll talk more about that in our next segment too. But things like, the funding in West Virginia of these charter schools, basically kind of a scam way of taking money out of the general funding pot and then placing it in these other places to eventually erode the public schools. And that's kind of what happened in Los Angeles is there was enough money taken away from these public schools and putting into these other types of schools, these charter schools, that it was creating an atmosphere where you have 40 plus students per class, and your schools themselves are horrible and falling apart. And then eventually it leads to the where people are like, why would we send our kids to a public school? So it's interesting that all of these things are actually being validated. These topics are being validated, and that the teacher strikes are working.
They definitely seem to be. The Denver one was a huge win. LA was a pretty big win. But a lot of these ones, the teachers are coming out not only with the maintained narrative, which is, I think it's critical. If teachers won but lost the support of people at the same time, it'd be tough, because the next time it has to happen, you're not going to get the same level of support you got now. But I think that one of the things that's really different this time in the States anyways is that not only are the teachers winning, but they're maintaining their support. Like, everyone's happy they won.
Yes.
As opposed to, oh, okay, we're back to school now. Well, it's great they got their 12% raise, but my kid was home, blah blah blah, and now I'm angry. Congratulations on your $20 a week raise.
Yes.
That kind of stuff we don't want. We don't want to lose the support of the public. So many American institutions have been undermined in the last 2 or 3 years as it is. We can't really afford to be undermining them all.
No.
And teachers are more important now. Like, we literally we've had a couple amazing conversations with teachers talking about how important it is to be mentors and have the kids look up to you, and teachers need to be looked upon as guides for the world, which is crazy right now. And it's hard to do that when their parents are talking smack about them at home at the dinner table because they go on strike.
Very tough. Yes, exactly.
When we come back, we're going to talk about another tough subject, another interesting subject. How to hire new teachers, how to keep new teachers, how to attract new teachers. So stay tuned.
Quests. One of Classcraft's most popular features, with over 100,000 lessons created by teachers and 3 million learning objectives completed by students so far, is now part of Classcraft's free offerings. In 2019, your students won't just be learning multiplication, chemistry, or any other content. They'll be saving the kingdom. Transform your lessons into adventures with Quests today. Visit classcraft.com for more information.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Saw an article this week in the Buffalo News about how hard a time they're having attracting new teachers. Super interesting. And I mean, we just came off a segment talking about strikes and stuff like that. I can see how it would be actually pretty difficult right now to say, hey, why don't you get into teaching? And I guess we have some ideas on how to get teachers into the profession. Glenn, maybe like paying them more. What do you think?
I think, that resounding thing that we heard last summer from the Teachers Are Professionals movement is basically, that's not something that's ever going to go away, I don't think. If you want professional teachers and your kids to have a really high quality of education, you don't want to have the people that are hired to do this job to be kind of subservient profession, subservient profession. And even what you're attracting to the profession, the type of quality of candidates, you want them to be the smartest, the most creative type of people that are coming out of each type of graduating class, and then them wanting to go ahead and jump into the teaching profession. And I don't think we have that right now. I honestly, I know we don't, because number one, there's a teacher shortage throughout the nation. Number two, the way that you get into being a teacher is, I don't think, rigorous enough. So we don't, when you're going to be a doctor, for example, there's so many multi-levels of as you go through your education process that basically you're cutting out certain people who are just not qualified to be able to do this job. We should do the exact same thing in education. It's not for everyone. We've actually talked about this, is if it's not hard work, then something is wrong. You know what I mean? It's the most complex profession. You're dealing with these, you're not dealing with a product, you're dealing with actual human beings and the evolving nature of their needs. And if you're not ready for that, you're not that qualified to be that person, you shouldn't even be in the profession. But I think too often it becomes a default profession, at least it does in the United States. And I know we've had this conversation where in Canada, you guys actually do treat teachers like professionals. It is a very in-demand profession. Like a lot of people seek out this degree because they want to be
Almost
in this profession. Yeah, exactly. And want to be in this profession. And then we kind of have the exact opposite, where it's kind of like, oh, I couldn't do this, so I guess now I'm going to teach. It's like, wow, that's horrible. I actually don't want those people in the profession. If that's kind of your secondary choice for a career,
that old, it's that old saying, those who can do and those who can't teach.
Yeah. And that's horrible.
Yeah. No, it's completely horrible. I have a clarifying question. In the United States, the Bachelor of Education, is it a postgraduate degree? Like you have to have an undergrad already to do a Bachelor of Education. Is that correct?
It's so when you seek out your education certification, I guess is the best way to be able to describe it, there are a couple different ways to be able to do it, but most of the time you major in a like, for example, let's call it elementary education is an actual major that a lot of universities offer, and you're qualified to teach basically K through 6, let's call it that, students. It's an undergrad degree, and then you do student teaching in order to qualify basically for your license. So it's kind of like you work in conjunction with those two things. So basically you have a 4-year degree most of the time, and then another 6 months or a semester of the student teaching. Now there's some other practicum stuff that happens beforehand, usually during the when you're seeking out the degree. You may actually do a practicum of, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 60 hours. I'm not sure, depending on the state. And then you go into classrooms, not actually teach most of the time, but basically observe those kinds of things and do those, reflection. But when you get to get the degree, you have to complete the student teaching portion, and then you can qualify for your license. There's other requirements for the license too, right? Depending on the state, tests, other kinds of portfolios, et cetera. There's other things that you have to do.
So in Ontario, it's different. Okay. In Canada, I think it's different. You have to have an undergrad first. Okay. Like you have to go, like I have 2 degrees. I have a Bachelor of Arts and Science. Okay. That's a 4-year degree. And then I have a Bachelor of Education that was right now, or when I was doing it, it was a year. But now a Bachelor of Education is actually 2 years.
Wow. So it's a total of 6 years.
So you're in school full time for 6 years.
Okay.
To be a teacher in at least in Ontario. I don't know if that's across all of Canada, but I know in Ontario it's you have to have an undergrad of some sort. Like Cheryl was a Bachelor of Kinesiology. She wasn't sure if she wanted to be a teacher or a doctor, so she did kinesiology. And then she did her Bachelor of Education at the University of Western Ontario. But she was still 5 years, which is what I was, 5 years. But now it's 6 years. And one of the reasons they highlight for why they switched it to 6 years was because there were too many graduates. Okay. It was too easy to go from an undergrad. You could just go get a BA in history. Yeah. Right. Yes. And then, which is, a pretty common degree, and then just go and do your B.Ed, and then you'd be qualified to be a teacher. Yes. But we still do literally have thousands, if not tens of thousands of teachers that are working in retail trying to get jobs because of the asinine hiring practices of our province, which we've talked about before. Yes. But the thing is that they're, like you've just said, they're in demand. This is what people wanted to do because, the starting salary for a teacher in Ontario is in the mid 40s, I'd say. But very quickly, I mean, you make after 12 years, you're making around or just over $100,000 a year.
That's amazing.
So my wife has been a kindergarten teacher for 10 or 12 years, and it's pretty common knowledge. Like, you can literally, if you search up Peel District School Board salary grid,
sure,
it's pretty common knowledge. Like, you could just go and look it up.
Of course.
How much,
Yep.
Right. But it's because they know, like, the reason why people want to teach in Ontario is because of it's a stable job. It's a rewarding job. It's a respected job, but it also it's a well-paying career in the end with a full, like, I mean, the Ontario, we've talked about this before too. The Ontario Teachers Pension Plan is one of the wealthiest pension plans on the planet.
Yes.
They owned the Toronto Maple Leafs at one point. So, I mean, as far as stability goes, there's not a whole lot better. This comes down to a question of what we would call opportunity cost. When you have a really smart person, let's say there's just a smart 17, 18-year-old kid who could do anything they wanted. You graduate high school and you could do anything. You could be a physicist. You could be an astronaut. You are so smart that you could just do whatever the heck you wanted to do. You're going to choose a career that has, there's going to be things that are different and important to you because you're an individual person, but you're going to weigh a bunch of things, and it's going to be things like future earnings. It's going to be the accumulation of wealth and prosperity, a stable job, a respected job, and stuff like this. And I think that when you add up all of those, like if you were to create a rubric for education, for being a teacher in the United States, let's say Louisiana, fun, right? Okay. If you had to create, or Arkansas, let's say we had to create a rubric for teaching in Arkansas, I mean, how low would that score be? I mean, it would be brutal.
You mean as far as pay, respected,
all of the, like if you had a 10-point scale,
exactly, of all of those types of things.
It would be awful.
Yeah.
You benefits. Would go be an astronaut, right? Of course you would.
Yeah.
And I mean, or a lawyer or a doctor, because all of those careers don't have the same, but certainly in Ontario, the level of education to be a teacher is on par with the level of education to be a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Well, pretty close, right?
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how long it would take to get a law degree in the United States. I mean, as far as that goes, but I know that if we did follow your set plan as far as basically earning the equivalent of a master's degree. So you have a 4-year undergrad degree and then you have 2 more years.
Which is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 more years. In those 2 years, I would be pro that. But what I would want to make sure that we would do in those 2 years is that it would be a hands-on type of education. So we're talking about being in schools with students, experiencing that, developing lesson plans, knowing how to manage your classroom, and then all of the other things that come along with it, ed tech, pedagogy, curriculum, all of those things. You're working with those things, not the theories of those things. That should be totally in your undergrad. Now you're doing that for 2 years. I say yes to that. And then as far as how to attract new teachers, I have on my list here is number 1, treat them like professionals. And I think number 2 is you start off by saying every state, we start off with $100,000 minimum salary. Now, some people laughed.
A lot of money.
Some people laughed at me on that, but just imagine all of the things that our federal government, especially, who I think should be the people that subsidize this cost. They shouldn't come from our local taxes like we've talked about before. Imagine all the things that our federal government spends money on that is a complete waste. For example, a wall or whatever else it might be. That we're just blowing billions of dollars through garbage. If you started,
the socialist in me says a giant military industrial complex that could win wars 10 million times over.
Exactly. No, I'm right along with you there. We waste a lot of federal dollars on things that aren't going to make the impact on our kids like this would. So if you start teachers off at $100,000 salary, you better prepare your incoming teachers, for example, in a 6-year degree like you're talking about. You have rigorous professional development requirements, not optional things, where we have to continue to grow in the profession. And we offer it like we talked about in this last segment, in ways that are relevant to our teachers, but we don't give it as an option. We say, you must do these things, and even bite into the summer months. If it's going to be $100,000, maybe we only get a certain amount of time off in the summer, and the rest of the time we're really growing as professionals, in the summer, and really making sure that we're on cue. We know exactly what we're doing. And then if you do all of that, you do recruit that kid that is considering a variety of different careers. And then maybe they do have a passion to teach, to work with students. That is their passion. And then now they have a career that says, oh yeah, we can go ahead and pursue this because we have this salary. By the way, Mike, too, I was just thinking about your salaries that you were talking about in Canada. $20,000 of my salary, right, went to insurance premiums, right? So I just did my taxes, and I'll announce it to everybody here. It was $19,968. So $20,000 of my earnings went to my insurance premiums. So that is before.
Sorry, what do you mean by insurance premiums?
So insurance premium is basically the cost that you pay to have a specific plan of insurance. And this is a subsidized plan by the school, if you can imagine that. So someone on the street would buy this plan. It probably would cost him $30,000 or more. I don't know how much more. So this is an insurance plan. So I went to the doctor. It still doesn't mean that it's going to cover everything, Mike. It's stupid. I still probably have to pay a copay and do some different things. So I'm just telling you right now that whatever my salary is, you can look up my salary. I'm probably getting paid $65,000 minus $20,000 of that for my insurance premiums. And I'm not alone in this thing. There's a bunch of teachers that have this kind of situation. And then minus the cost of any outgoing, like anytime we actually go to the doctor or whatever it might be. And then now add on top of that, my student loans that I had, and anything else that you just want to do is just to survive. You're talking about like, how are you going to choose to do this career? No wonder we can't attract new teachers. You incur a bunch of debts. You have to pay out tons of money in insurance premiums, and you don't get that good of a salary. And really, my salary is really good, Mike, compared to a bunch of other states. My cost of living is way lower as far as my house and those kinds of things. But I don't even know how other people do it in other states. No wonder they have all those stories on Time Magazine, where they can't even afford to live.
So Cheryl's, I can tell you that, so we have universal health care in Ontario, as we all know, and I'll continue to thank you. But there is also, Cheryl gets supplementary, it's private health care, but it's fully paid by the board. So she doesn't have any copay or anything like that. So the only thing we pay out of pocket for related to healthcare at our house is the dispensing fee on medication.
Okay.
At the pharmacy, that 3-year, I guess it'd be like $5 at Costco that you pay, Costco to fill your prescription.
Okay.
That's the only thing. Yeah, so $20,000. I couldn't imagine being like $20,000 right off the top.
I just did my taxes, man. It was disgusting.
Being cut out. It would make a pretty significant difference to our lifestyle.
Big time.
Listen, all that I want is for the really smart people, and there are. Don't get me wrong. There's
amazing teachers right now. Yes,
there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of incredibly genius, smart. We know them, and they're our friends. Yes. And I mean, these are
we're not
brilliant.
Dissing the profession. It's just saying,
no.
Why don't we just grow it?
We just need more.
Really get all of the people. Exactly.
We just want the astronaut to choose to teach instead of flying to space.
Hey. What amazing thing would that be? Yes.
So, I mean, that's what we're looking for, just to grow it and some ideas about how to do that. When we come back, we're going to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Carl Hooker. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're thrilled to be joined on the pod today by Carl Hooker. Carl is the Director of Innovation and Digital Learning at Eanes ISD in Austin. He's a well-traveled speaker, conference keynoter. He does all the things. Runs LearnFest ATX. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. That runs in the summer. We've tried to have him on a couple times, and it just has never worked out. But he's back from vacation, and we're so happy to have him. Thanks for joining us, Carl.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate being on the podcast. I'm excited about it.
We are too. So I actually have a story to get started. And Carl, you've heard a bit of this story before, but I want it out on the air because I think it's important. So Carl is one of the first people that I ever met in like ed tech, like people. You know who I'm talking about.
Air quotes ed tech. I saw that.
Right. Yeah. You know, edu Twitter famous, whatever people. Carl's one of the first people I ever met. It was 2013. We were at the EdTech Teacher Boston iPad Summit. Yep. And we brought almost our whole school to this summit. And I was in the whole day, morning, afternoon, the workshop, the whole day thing. At the beginning of the day before it actually started thing, and spent a whole day with Carl, and we hit it off like really, really well and had so much fun. We were doing like, I don't know if we really use that word a whole lot anymore, but doing like app smashing. That's such a great
term. A lot
of
playful banter. That was an interesting group. I remember that. There wasn't a big workshop either. Was it, Mike? There was like 20 or 30 people in there maybe?
Yeah. So Carl and I stayed in touch quite a bit and talked on Twitter and back and forth. And my first time speaking at a conference was at ISD in 2015. And I remember, and this is the part that I've told Carl before, and that's that Carl sat like in the front row of my Minecraft presentation in 2015. And I have to say, Carl, that I'm not 100% certain I'd be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't partly for you and like your influence and your advice and your mentorship. I'm a giant fan. And again, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for you. So I wanted to thank you for being like such a huge supporter of mine, like when I was first starting with talking about things. And, I've said it before. It's like I felt like I had things to say and that people wanted to listen, and you helped me prove that was true. And so I can't help but thank you, buddy.
I appreciate that. I remember that session very well. Minecraft EDU was kind of an unknown thing, and I saw it on the schedule, and I saw your name, and I thought, wait a minute, I know this guy. And so I remember sitting there in the front row and kind of heckling you a little bit, but it was great. And I remember the range of people in that audience went from people that had never heard of what even Minecraft was. They were like, now what do I do next? I remember two people, I mean, like me, who knew about it, but we wanted to see the application. It was pretty cool. But thank you for that shout out. And obviously you've done a lot of the work yourself. If I played a little part, that's awesome. But I really love seeing great people do great things. And that's something that when I saw your early work, I was like, Mike's headed for something. Then he meets this Glen guy, and then who knows what happens after that. Then they got a podcast, and now it's a big hit. So awesome.
So going into speaking off of that, I guess, is that I think mentorship has been super critical for me. I've relied on tons of people still. I talk to people all the time, maybe different types of people than the people I was talking to originally, in the classroom. But I'm still I'm talking to people like you and Steve Isaacs and a bunch of other people all the time to get advice on things that like you guys have been doing some of this stuff that I'm just starting to do. You've been doing it for a while. Even mentors need mentors is I guess the way to say it. Do you still find yourself calling up folks for advice despite the fact that you're looked up to by, a ton of teachers like me and other people?
Yeah, it's different now, obviously. But I mean, early on in my career, I was, a principal that I had, Dottie Hall, who got me kind of built around the idea of school culture. She brought me with me from campus to campus. And this is before I even got out and did anything other than just staying in the classroom. But she really taught me about the power of what a culture can do to a campus. And then bringing that same kind of energy and pizzazz and charisma to an adult learning situation, I found that I really had a niche and a love for teaching adults, which is a challenge. Admittedly, they're not always as easy as kids. In fact, sometimes a lot harder. And so from that, I kind of turned this career into I wanted to make sure I did something that had to do with professional learning. And so a lot of the avenues I've gone have all been revolving around that. When it came to, professional speaking, there's lots of people, you guys probably know them, George Couros early on, Adam Bello with all of his crazy, amazing slides and his slide design. Kevin Honeycutt actually was the first one I talked to about just like as a career, what did it look like for him? I'm still working full time in the school district, so I don't know that I'll ever be a full time speaker, but just getting lots of tips and advice from him. But then honestly, lately, what I've been doing is looking outside of education. So I get inspired by the strangest things and strangest places and Stranger Things, the show. And so a lot of things that I find in other places, and I don't know if you guys do this too. I'll be at a festival like ACL Fest, which is our big music festival here, a couple of years ago, and they were doing this thing called silent disco with different people listening to different DJs with headphones on. I started thinking, geez, is there a way to tie that into to professional learning? And so at LearnFest, we pilot tested it this last year, and we're going to bring it back this year. The same kind of concept where you can listen to two keynote speakers at the exact same time on the exact same stage, but you have headphones on that can toggle between the two of them, depending on which one you want to listen to. And the kicker is they can see who's listening to them because of the color on the headphones change. So no pressure if you're on stage, but
I'm just so glad that's not me.
Wait, I thought you were doing it now. Surprise. So lots of other things. So like we were just on a cruise, and a lot of times I'll even on cruise ships, they do lots of different ways to get audience engagement on a cruise ship to get them enjoy and have the fun. So trivias are a big part of it. So lately I've been incorporating a lot more like kind of a trivia concept. So even when I'm doing professional workshops, I just did GAETC in Georgia. And before, I always hate that lull that happens when you go and do a workshop and you wait that 15 to 12 minutes before the speaker gets up to talk and everyone's kind of sitting there looking at each other, looking at their phone. So I started to do trivia. As people walk in, I start doing trivia now, just random trivia questions with the audience. And then when it's time for me to start, I'll start. But I don't like that awkward silence. So little things like that. So I guess in terms of mentorship, there were individuals early on, and now it's more of like I look for other places. So another one was Dr. Dre and Johnny Ive. They just had a documentary on HBO about kind of cross. Do you love that?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
love
same. It's like my for some reason when it comes to just in general musical trivia and knowledge, like 1986 to 1992 rap music is like the only thing I can karaoke and do off the top of my head. But which I won't do right here on the podcast yet. But seeing how they just kind of remixed off of each other and vibe off each other. So like Felix Giacomino, who's in Miami, I talked to him quite a bit. Adam File, who's in Atlanta. And it's funny, Mike, all these people from different parts of the world, we're all kind of connected quickly. So if we have an idea, let's bounce it off each other, like Fortnite EDU, Mike, come on. So I've started to get to where I don't really get mentors as much. I feel like that I get the connection through collaboration and get inspired by others. And inside and outside of education. So I feel like that's where I'm at right now, career-wise.
I love that you mentioned that Dr. Dre HBO special. I love that. I've watched it so many times. It just blows me away.
If it's on, I watch it. I love that stuff. And then, of course, the lady who lives here, my boss, my formal boss and informal boss, my wife also, I would say, give her a shout out because I always joke that she makes a lot of multi-million-dollar decisions at a district level sometimes because I come home and go, oh, what should we do about this? And what does this feel like if you're just a parent on the street? What does it look like to you? And she gives me feedback like, you know what, this is a good idea. This is probably not so good. Because I have a lot of ideas, I'll admit it, and not all of them are good. In fact, most of them aren't.
Love it. So Eanes Independent School District in Austin is generally regarded as a model for ed tech. And I know you've been around and you've seen a lot of districts and how they operate. What do you guys think you're doing in your school district that's different?
I think a couple of things. And I would say that, when I started out in 2006, we had the kind of what I call the TADD, which is technology attention deficit disorder, where people are like, okay, back then it was like, here's the digital camera, here's the Adobe Premiere Suite, here's, kind of throw a bunch of things out and see what sticks. And we went 1-to-1 in 2011. It was starting to go that same route with apps. Like, let's just grab as many apps as we can. Let's figure out what we're going to do. And really what we started doing the last 4 or 5 years, I feel like that set us above most, is that we really started to think about the thoughtful and purposeful use of tech in terms of a creation device, not just about consumption. We're still 1-to-1 iPads. And I know there's a ton of Chromebook districts out there, and we use Google as well. We're Google Suite. But really starting to get ahead of the idea that apps are just not there to kind of put kids on for 5 minutes and then walk away. It's really about what are they creating with that content. And then the two things I would say that we do, that's not unique because a lot of districts are doing that, but the two things I would say that we do that makes us stand out is, one is we really have a powerful team of educational technologists. We have one on every campus and 2 at the high school. So we have 9 campuses, and two of them are at the high school, which is a massive high school. It's got 2,700 kids, Westlake High School. And it's, I would say that having that just-in-time availability is unique. I go to other districts and you may have an instructional coach, or you may have a librarian or someone who's floating around in multiple campuses, but having one on each campus I just hardly ever see that ever. So I feel like that's a huge win. And then the other side of it, the other thing that we did a couple of years ago is the state changed kind of the evaluation model here, and they gave us an opportunity to create our own if we didn't want to go with the state model. So we went and made our own kind of teacher evaluation model that wasn't based on proficiency, like, oh, check a box if you touch the smartboard today type thing, which is what the old model kind of was. This is more on the growth model. So teachers have to identify both an individual and a team thing they want to grow in for the year. It doesn't matter if you've been teaching 1 year or 30 years, you still have to grow and continue to learn, right? And so I feel like that's really kind of motivated the teachers to seek out help now, to say, okay, I want to improve in this area. And when it comes to technology, that's always usually one that's up there. So they'll reach out to me, they'll reach out to our team, think, how do we do this and how do we make it better? So I feel like those two things, having the one-on-one person on every campus and then kind of that unique evaluation model, although more districts are moving to it. I love it. That kind of growth model is not a negative that you have to grow. It's always a positive.
So, I mean, speaking of your team, you've brought it up already a couple times, and it's funny because one of the things I've noticed a lot more popping up on Twitter, especially from you or from kind of your district's Twitter account, is references to you guys working together a lot, and that I think is really, really cool. You obviously have a pretty damn good team going on down there. So why don't you speak a little bit to kind of your team, how you guys work together, and how you lead them and stuff like that?
Sure. You talked about mentors earlier. Sometimes you get inspiration from leaders that, let's just say that you don't want to be like. So when I started out in education, I found a couple of leaders. I was like, ooh, too much top down, too much kind of behind closed doors, not a lot of collaborative leadership. And so for me, when I got this role about 8 years ago, I said, I'm going to start this out by being pretty much a flat leader. I mean, we're going to be on the same page together. We're going to collaborate together. Sure, there's times when I'll have to say no or the buck stops with me. But for the most part, I really value their leadership. And I was at Google, the Googleplex back in Mountain View a few years ago, and I ran across the 2 Google CEOs, and they said, our thing is always hire people smarter than you. So that's been my goal ever since that moment. I was like, all right, I'm going to go out and do this. So we started with an exhaustive gauntlet. It's a 7-stage hiring process that's modeled after Google and Facebook somewhat. That's not like anything I've seen in education, where basically the people that want to apply for these jobs have to go through several series of different things to get the job. So I know that when we get through the whole process, if they really want the job and they get rated out the highest, they definitely deserved it and earned it. And so the team is made up of people, some Twitter all-stars in there. Tech Chef for You, Lisa Johnson just came out with a new book that's pretty amazing.
Going to be on the pod soon.
Oh, very good. So Lisa's at the high school. She and I have been working together for probably 6 years now. She was one of the first to come on board. And a lot of us have kids in the district too. So that's another big sell, because honestly, these people, they could all be my position in other districts. A lot of them, Chris Hansen, who came over from Manor, same thing. Jennifer Flood from Bastrop, same thing. These are, again, people that could be directors in their own school districts, but they came and kind of joined the team because they kind of see where we're going and the vision of trying those new things. Rich Lombardo has done some amazing work with drones. You and Mike, you guys would totally get along great, because he's done he just started a drone racing league at the middle school. Actually, I'm going to go check it out next week. So again, this group is just, it's a great team. We have 4 Apple Distinguished Educators on the team. I think the big thing about us is how we work is, most of our time admittedly is on campus. I mean, we try not to pull off a campus that much because that's really where we need to be face to face. But we do gather every couple of weeks for a couple hours and just kind of sync up when we can. We'll have after work meetings quite a bit too, if you know what I mean. And so we try to make sure that we're always kind of connected, whether it be professionally or even just personally, just like how we're doing, how we're catching up with each other's lives. And we all live kind of crazy lives. I mean, we all have kids and we're all going to conferences and things like that. But our main job here in the district is still to kind of make sure that we're pushing the district forward and knowing that there's no ceiling on excellence. So no matter what, we're always going to be improving. And these people, let me tell you, holding a meeting with the 10 of them is pretty intimidating because I'll walk into it and, they'll tear me apart sometimes and say, like, if I'll have an idea, they'll say, hey, they'll really chew it up and spit it back out at me. And I'll say, okay, you know what? I need to rethink this. So it's humbling, but at the same time, it makes me better too. So I totally enjoy it. I love every minute of it. And I've been lucky. It's taken me 8 years, like I said, to build this team. So it's powerful, and you'll see them all in action this summer at LearnFest. So I'm excited to showcase all of them.
Ah, perfect. LearnFest ATX is. He segued into that. This guy knows what he's doing. So LearnFest ATX, June 11th to 13th. By the way, we're going to have a registration link in the show notes that I think has a bit of a discount if you want to come. So give us like the Coles notes of LearnFest. Can you tell us anything about the conference in general, themes, kind of key speakers, sessions, keynotes? Give us the top down on LearnFest.
Okay, so LearnFest, this is the first real full year of it. Last year we were beta, so we tried out some new concepts. I think 7 different things that we had never seen at any other conference or EdTech, any event. And out of those 7 things, 4 of them were really awesome. So 3 of them not so good. So we kind of trashed those and said, okay, for the big one, we're going to bring some back out. One of which was the silent disco. We're bringing that in. In terms of speakers, Mike, you're one of our featured speakers this year. Woohoo! We've got people from all over the country, and I'll tell you, and I'll be honest, a lot of these people are keynote speakers at other conferences. So Monica Burns, Adam File, Felix Giacomino, who I mentioned before, Steve Dembo, Shannon Miller, Brianna Hodges, who's on our team and actually shares an office with me. So feel very sad for her because she has to deal with me all the time. Our keynote speaker is Manoush Zamarodi, who does the Note to Self podcast and is part of the WNYC and NPR's channel up there in New York. She's got a book called Bored and Brilliant that came out that really is a great kind of idea about how to balance technology and life, which is something we've been really helping our kids with and also helping our teachers with in terms of, when is it a good time to turn yourself off? Don't check email after 7 o'clock, those kind of things. So we're excited to have her on board. Julie Wilcott, Carrie Gallagher, Don Goebel, Kyle Pace, Monica Burns. You probably heard Lisa. Of course, I already mentioned her, Christina Ishmael, Andy Marsnick. I'm just kind of scrolling quick to see Audrey Eau Claire. I'm probably forgetting some people, but that's a few off the top list. So about 30 featured speakers, and then there's 30 people. So that's, that's 1 featured speaker per person. No, I think it's going to end up being about 1,000 people. I think it'll be about 1,000 people. It's funny because as I was doing the featured speaker, someone on the team said, "Carl, how many featured speakers can you have?" And I was like, "I don't know, but we're going to push the limit." But these people are awesome. Mike, I appreciate you coming down. A lot of you guys are doing it at pretty much nothing. You're just coming down. I'm helping cover a little bit of travel, but I can't afford to pay all of these people. It's a kind of a small homegrown event. So you're going to have your traditional kind of sit and get and sit and interact type sessions, but we'll mix in a lot of different things. So the idea of this event is, and the theme is Ready Learner One, kind of based on the Ready Player One concept. So a lot of 80s retro video games is kind of the theme. You'll see a lot of stuff with that. There's gonna be a lot of Easter eggs hidden throughout the event, both physical and digital. I don't want to give away too much. I'm trying to think what I can tell you legally. The website already, by the way, just a hint for those of you that are listening, the website has Easter eggs hidden on it. You just have to find them. And then let me think. So one of the other things I can tell you that we're doing, so I'll do 2 things real quick. One is, as a person attending, this is the thing. Whenever you go to those conferences like ISD and TCA, these are great, big, giant, massive, 12,000, 18,000 people events. I always see that kind of same look, that look of that person walking through the halls going, I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much going on. What do I do? It's great that I got to hear this, but I went to 4 terrible sessions and now I got this one good session. And so it's kind of like, and Felix has called it, kind of like the Walmart of ed tech. There's lots of stuff, but you have to kind of pick and choose. So this is more of a boutique event, if you will, really specializing, really honing it down to those great things that you pick, that I always hear when people go to ISD, say, man, it was great connecting and collaborating with people. So we really try to make that the feature of these events. And so as an individual, you'll have an opportunity to do some individual things, both in sessions, but also in terms of earning badges throughout the event. You'll be able to have some collaborative team activities. We have the Amazing Race that we've been doing with iPad Palooza for several years, but we're bringing that back, kind of a remix of that this year. So you'll be able to earn some prizes that way. Then there's kind of the larger scale events, both on the big stage. And we just debuted this 49-foot video wall that we have last year that's gorgeous. It's the only one I know of in a high school in the country. And that thing is massive. And I love putting slides on that thing because it's beautiful to look at, 4K. So that's eye-opening when you walk into the main theater.
I'm gonna need to up my slide deck game, I guess.
Yeah, it's not conventional. It's like 3,300 by 2,408 or something too. Like the slide dimensions is weird. So I'll chat with you about that offline. But so lots of different things. The other thing I'll say that we're bringing back from last year that again I got from somewhere else. It wasn't from education. Is we did the What's Hot in Ed Tech Challenge. And the way that works is you have 3 minutes to kind of come up with a hot concept, something hot in ed tech. But before you talk, you get up on stage and you spin this digital wheel and there's peppers in front of you, a poblano, a habanero, a jalapeno, and a serrano. And you have to eat the pepper before you actually get up and talk on stage. So people had to sign waivers. I did it too last year. It was hilarious, but also awesome because you had to actually get a 3-minute session out in front of a large crowd while you're crying, essentially the whole time. So I love that. I'm growing some ghost chilies in my backyard right now. We'll see. That can be dangerous though, so I don't know if I'll break those out. But no, that was a fun one. It got a good response. So I've already got a couple people that have volunteered to willingly get up on stage and do that. Believe it or not, I don't think I'm doing it again this year, but someone else can do that. Lots of good stuff. We're doing a teacher Shark Tank. So if you want to win prizes again, come up with a concept, something you want to do in your classroom, we'll award prizes for that. Last year's group wanted to redo a kind of an atrium part of their high school. And so they pitched a little thing for less than $1,000 if they could, get these large, like giant chess pieces and things like that and kind of rethink it was kind of a dead space at the high school. And so they won the Shark Tank Challenge last year. So lots of fun ways to interact over the 3 days of the event for sure. And then of course, food trucks, live bands, the traditional kind of stuff that we used to do with iPad Palooza.
So, I mean, I can't think of a better way to spend the early summer for a couple of days than Austin in early June. So listen, LearnFest ATX is June 11 to 13th. Like we said, we're going to put a link in the show notes. If you want to come, and it sounds like you should definitely want to come. There's going to be a lot of awesome stuff going on, and it sounds like a little bit of nonsense as well, which is always good. Carl, thanks for joining us. This has been amazing. Carl Hooker, everyone, how can people get in touch with you? How can people follow you on Twitter and all of that stuff?
I'm at Mr. Hooker on Twitter, so make sure you follow at Mr. Hooker. Don't go to at Hooker. That's something totally different.
Not the same.
Mildly inappropriate. I'm at Hooker Tech on everything else, Snapchat, Instagram, and all that. And then LearnFest ATX is the same at Instagram and Twitter as well. So a lot of the events we're putting out through that, and that's me, but other people are controlling that account too, just kind of whenever we do promo things coming up. But and then Mike, the link you guys are talking about, should be able to get $10 off right now. We're doing we're still in regular registration through April. And then June 11th was the pre-fest Learn Shop, the longer kind of pre-events that are happening. But the 2 main days, the 12th and 13th, is the big event itself. So we'd love to have you all down. Yeah, Austin in June is gorgeous. It's not quite super hot yet, but we'll be inside for most of it. So if it is hot, we'll have tents and things outside just to cool us off.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much, Carl.
Thank you all. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glen is at Irv Spanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we'd love if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in the Apple Podcast or Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost, and this helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Schoology, for supporting us. Check out Schoology.com to learn how they can help you advance what's possible. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome, and we'll see you soon.